Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. It waits patiently in the shadows, ready to claw its way back when you least expect it. Emma Clark gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white against the worn leather as she navigated the familiar route to her final chemotherapy session. The morning light stretched long shadows across the road, her weary eyes barely tracking the changing traffic signals ahead. Then, a sudden flicker caught her peripheral vision, a German shepherd darting between cars at the intersection, thin and matted, but deliberate in its movements. 3 years had slipped by since that terrible night, when Daniel stormed out of their home during their final argument, taking Rex with him in pure spite, her beloved service dog disappearing into the darkness despite her desperate screams. As the traffic light flipped to red and Emma's car rolled to a stop, the German shepherd froze mid-crosswalk, its amber eyes locking with hers through the windshield. In that frozen moment, the recognition that passed between them made Emma's blood run cold. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now, let's continue the story. Oak Ridge was a kind of small town that looked picturesque on postcards, but had a lifetime of struggles beneath its surface. Nestled against the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, its residents endured winters as harsh as the life many faced here. The downtown consisted of a single main street, lined with brick buildings dating back to the 1920s, most housing businesses that had seen better days. It was a place where everyone knew everyone, for better or worse. Emma Clark had returned to Oak Ridge 3 years ago, after her second deployment in Afghanistan. At 39, her body carried invisible wounds alongside the visible scar running along her left forearm. The military had trained her for combat, but never for the brutal transition back to civilian life. The nightmares came almost every night. Explosions, screams, the crushing weight of responsibility for those under her command. Her PTSD diagnosis came with a medical discharge and a recommendation for a service animal. That's how Rex entered her life. The German shepherd, with keen eyes and an uncanny intuition, had been trained specifically to support veterans. He could sense Emma's panic attacks before they spiraled, pressing his weight against her legs when her breathing quickened, nudging her hands when memories threatened to drag her back to the desert. Their bond was immediate and profound. Where medication and therapy had failed, Rex succeeded. Despite her own struggles, Emma volunteered twice a week at the local veteran center. Those who had known her before Rex would barely recognize the woman she'd become with him by her side, able to leave her house without constantly scanning exits and entrances, able to shop in crowded stores, even mentoring younger veterans returning home. Dr. Claire Benson, both her friend and physician at the VA center, had once called Rex better than any medicine I could prescribe. Before Daniel stole Rex away, Emma had built something resembling peace. Her small house on Maple Street had become a sanctuary rather than a prison of isolation. She'd planted a garden that summer, had even started dating again. Daniel Harper had seemed kind at first, a local mechanic with a disarming smile who fixed her aging truck without overcharging. 6 months into their relationship, his true nature emerged, controlling, jealous, especially of her bond with Rex. The arguments escalated until that final night, when he took the one thing that anchored her sanity. Emma often relived that night in fragments, jagged pieces of memory that cut her anew each time they surfaced. It had been raining, a cold October downpour that matched the mood of their final confrontation. Daniel had arrived at her door, already agitated, smelling of whiskey and resentment. Rex sensed the tension immediately, positioning himself protectively between them as they moved into the kitchen. "You care more about that damn dog than you do about me?" Daniel spat, his voice rising with each word. Emma remembered how Rex's ears had flattened back, how he pressed closer to her leg as Daniel paced the linoleum floor. "He's not just a dog," she tried to explain for what felt like the 100th time. "He's my medical equipment, my lifeline." But Daniel had never understood, or perhaps never wanted to understand, how Rex was essential to her functioning in the world. The argument escalated quickly. When Daniel knocked a glass off the counter in frustration, Rex barked a warning, not an attack. That's when Daniel snapped, yanking Rex's leash from its hook by the door. "Let's see how well you function without your lifeline," he sneered, somehow managing to clip the leash to Rex's collar amid the chaos that followed. Emma remembered lunging for them, felt Rex's confused whine as Daniel dragged him toward the door. She'd fallen, her hips striking the sharp edge of the kitchen table. By the time she scrambled to her feet, the front door slammed shut. The sound of Daniel's pickup engine revving in the driveway. Emma ran outside barefoot, screaming Daniel's name as his taillights disappeared down the rain-slicked road. She heard Rex's desperate barking fading into the distance, a sound that haunted her dreams for months to come. The hours that followed blurred together. Emma recalled calling the police, recalling the responding officers' barely concealed skepticism when she reported her ex-boyfriend had stolen her service dog. "Domestic disputes over pets are civil matters, ma'am," he'd said, though he did take down Daniel's information. The officer advised her to contact animal control in the morning, suggesting Rex might turn up on his own. But Emma knew better. Daniel had taken Rex to hurt her, to strip away her independence and security. By dawn, Emma had called every animal shelter within 50 miles, filed reports with all surrounding police departments, and created missing dog posters on her laptop with trembling hands. Days turned into weeks of searching. Emma drove through neighborhoods, calling Rex's name until her voice cracked. She stapled waterproof posters to telephone poles, handed flyers to strangers, and posted in every online pet forum she could find. She confronted Daniel at his workplace, at his apartment, even at the bar he frequented, but he stuck to the same story. That Rex had jumped from his truck at a stoplight, disappearing into the night. Not my fault your precious dog ran away, he taunted. The first sighting came 3 weeks after Rex disappeared. A woman walking her own dog near the industrial park claimed to have seen a German shepherd matching Rex's description. Emma had rushed there, hope blooming painfully in her chest, only to find no trace of him. The pattern repeated. A potential sighting, a frantic search, crushing disappointment. Each false lead carved away another piece of her resolve. Without Rex's steady presence, Emma's PTSD symptoms returned with vengeance. Nightmares left her gasping for air in the darkness. Crowded spaces became impossible to navigate. She stopped volunteering at the Veterans Center, stopped shopping during busy hours, eventually stopped leaving home except when absolutely necessary. Dr. Benson prescribed new medications. But pills couldn't replace what Rex had provided. Intuitive, immediate support when anxiety threatened to drown her. He's suffering out there, Emma told her therapist during one particularly hard session. He's trained to be with people, to help. What if someone's mistreating him? What if he's cold or hungry or scared? Those thoughts tormented her more than her own deteriorating mental health. 6 months after Rex's disappearance, the police officially closed the case. Daniel had moved to another state, and without evidence that he still had Rex, there was nothing more they could do. Sometimes we have to accept loss, Officer Wilson had said gently, even when it doesn't make sense. But Emma couldn't accept it. Even as her search methods became less organized, her determination never wavered. She kept Rex's bed in its place by the fireplace, his food and water bowls clean and ready in the kitchen. His favorite toy, a tattered stuffed duck, remained on her bedside table, the last thing she saw before closing her eyes each night. Deep down, beyond reason or evidence, she knew Rex was out there somewhere, and she knew with equal certainty that he hadn't forgotten her either. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday morning, delivered in Dr. Claire Benson's office with a gentle caution of someone handling explosives. 3 months before Emma would encounter Rex at that fateful intersection. She sat across from her friend as words like glioblastoma, aggressive, and 6 months floated between them like debris after a blast. We need to discuss treatment options, Dr. Benson said, her professional demeanor barely masking her personal heartbreak. There are experimental protocols. How long with treatment? Emma interrupted, her voice remarkably steady. Perhaps 8 months. Maybe a year. But Emma, the quality of, I need to find Rex first, Emma said, as if this new death sentence was merely another item on her to-do list. I need to make sure he's taken care of when I'm gone. Dr. Benson reached across the desk, her cool fingers wrapping around Emma's wrist. This isn't a death sentence. Not yet, but you need to focus on your health now. Not. He's out there, Claire. I know it. I can feel it. Emma withdrew her hand. I'm not spending my last months giving up on him. That same afternoon, Emma sat on a park bench near the homeless encampment that had formed under the Highway 16 overpass. She'd been coming here weekly for months, speaking with anyone willing to talk, showing Rex's picture on her weather-beaten phone. Today, a man who called himself Bobby approached her, his weathered face half hidden beneath a thick, graying beard. You the lady looking for the German shepherd? He asked, settling beside her with the careful movements of someone whose joints ached constantly. Emma straightened. Yes. Have you seen him? Bobby nodded slowly. Military dog? Ain't he got that look about him? Carries himself different than other strays. He was my service dog, Emma explained, handing him a bottle of water from her backpack. He was stolen 2 years ago. Bobby accepted the water, studying her face. Army, 2 tours in Afghanistan. You. Vietnam. Different war, same nightmares. He took a long drink before continuing. Seen a dog like yours down by the old rail yard. Smart one. Doesn't let people get close. But he looks out for the weaker dogs. Runs with 3 or 4 others now. Hope flared in Emma's chest. Bright and painful. When? How recently? A few days back. He's got a scar above his right eye. That match your boy. Emma's breath caught. The scar was new. Rex hadn't had it when Daniel took him, but everything else Bobby described matched. Can you show me where? 3 days later, Emma stood in Officer Wilson's office at the Oak Ridge Police Department, Bobby fidgeting nervously beside her. The officer's expression remained professionally neutral, as Bobby Bobby recounted his sightings of Rex. Ms. Harper, Officer Wilson said when Bobby finished, "I understand your connection to this animal, but Mr. Johnson here has a documented history of serving his country and then being forgotten." Emma cut in, her voice sharp, just like Rex. Wilson sighed, glancing at Bobby's disheveled appearance. His mental health record suggests he may not be the most reliable witness. "I know what I saw," Bobby insisted, dignity straightening his stooped shoulders. "That dog's got purpose, not like most strays." After they left the station, Emma thanked Bobby with another bottle of water and $20 she couldn't really spare. From that day on, Emma moved like a searchlight through Oakage. Each dawn she rose before the sun, her bedroom lit only by the soft amber glow of Rex's bedside toy, the old tattered duck, and the sterile blue of pill bottles lined up like sentries. Painkillers, antiemetics, anticonvulsants, light and shadow, weapon and warning. "I believe you," she told him, and the simple validation seemed to mean more to him than the money. That evening, instead of attending her scheduled chemotherapy appointment, Emma drove to the rail yard Bobby had described. The area was desolate, abandoned tracks overgrown with weeds, old cargo containers rusting like forgotten monuments. Perfect territory for a pack of homeless dogs, far from animal control's regular routes. For 2 hours she walked the perimeter, calling Rex's name, her flashlight beam cutting through the gathering darkness. No German shepherd appeared, but she found signs, paw prints of varying sizes in the mud, a makeshift den fashioned beneath an overturned cart. Someone had been leaving food here. Empty cans of cheap dog food were scattered near a water-filled depression. The next day, Emma expanded her search. She visited pawn shops along the route from her home to the rail yard, showing Rex's picture and describing his distinctive collar tag, a military metal replica her unit had given her, which she'd attached to his collar. In the third shop, a flicker of recognition crossed the owner's face. "Custom job," he said, pulling out a ledger. Guy brought it in maybe a year back, said it was his grandfather's. Emma's heart pounded as the man located the entry. "Daniel Reynolds," she whispered, reading the name upside down. "That's right, paid him $40 for it. Military memorabilia sells well." He slid the tag across the counter. The familiar bronze star catching the "never put out for sale," though, seemed special. "Was going to give it to my nephew who's in the Marines." Emma stared at the small piece of metal, the light from the pawn shop's overhead fluorescence glinting off the worn edges. That sliver of reflected light struck her like a flare fired in a darkened field. Sudden, piercing, undeniable. Daniel had lied. Rex hadn't jumped. He'd been discarded. His identity sold off like scrap. With trembling fingers, Emma reached into her wallet and offered the owner double what he'd paid. The weight of the tag in her hand was nothing, but its meaning pressed down with the gravity of truth. That truth, illuminated at last, ignited something in her, a fire not of rage, but of resolve. Daniel had tried to extinguish the bond between her and Rex by dousing it in shadow, burying it beneath lies, but he had underestimated the light they carried. That steady glow of loyalty and love between a handler and her dog. She would find Rex. If it was the last thing she did, she would bring him home. Emma mapped her search on paper spread across the kitchen table, marking each neighborhood like sectors in a military op. Her flashlight became an extension of her hand, scanning alleys, sheds, underpasses, and railway cars. The rail yard, desolate and rust streaked, became the epicenter of her effort, the place where her hope flickered most stubbornly. Bobby introduced her to others, veterans living under tarps and pallets, each with a flashlight of their own, literal or metaphorical. Their eyes, like hers, had seen things that didn't fade in daylight. They became her scouts. They saw the same thing in Emma that Rex must have once seen. Someone still carrying light, no matter how dimmed. The radiation began to dim her physically. Clumps of her hair fell like ash. Her skin grew pale, almost translucent, as though light itself was trying to leave her. On the hardest days, she would sit in Rex's training area, watching the way the sunlight cut through the leaves, scattering gold across the grass where he used to sit beside her. She thought of their first meeting, Rex approaching slowly, his eyes bright with silent intelligence, as if he were evaluating not whether she was worthy, but whether she needed him. The trainer had called him special, not just trained, tuned, a dog who could read shadows in people and shine through them. One day, Ellie, a teenage volunteer with eyes like copper pennies, described a shepherd she'd seen at the abandoned mill. He moved like a sentinel, she said, always watching, always keeping the others close. Emma felt warmth rise in her chest like the first rays of sun after too long underground. She returned to the mill that night. No moon, only the narrow beam of her flashlight cutting through rust and ruin. She found paw prints in the dust, smears of blood near a fence post, and something beneath a sheet of dented steel, Rex's old blanket, dragged into a makeshift nest. She crouched there, surrounded by darkness, and brought the blanket to her face. And there it was, that scent, earthy, wild, and uniquely Rex. She didn't cry right away. Instead, she sat with it, let the moment glow inside her like a lantern lighting her ribcage. "You're alive," she whispered, "and I'm not done yet." Even when pain knocked her to the kitchen floor, when When the world tilted and spun in darkness closed in, Emma clung to that light. At the hospital, Dr. Winters delivered the scan results with quiet dread. "We need to talk about hospice," she said gently. "No," Emma replied, her voice low but steady. "Not until I find Rex." Later, when Dr. Winters pressed her hand, asking softly what came after, Emma met her eyes. "I have a plan. The vet center can place him. He can still help someone. His light doesn't go out just because mine does." In the days that followed, even as she stayed home to recover, her network expanded. Bobby and the others tracked Rex's movements like phases of the moon. At dawn, he led his pack to a creek. At midday, the rail yard. By nightfall, the mill. He'd guard them, Bobby said once, smiling with something close to reverence. Especially a little one with a limp stands watch while it drinks. Doesn't eat until the others are safe. Emma turned her face toward the setting sun that day, her skull bare, her hands trembling, her breath shallow. She felt the fading warmth on her cheek and whispered, "That's my boy, Rex," her light in the darkness, still burning, still guiding, still waiting. She wondered what horrors Rex had endured after Jason abandoned him, how he'd survived those first brutal months before finding his new pack. Emma shifted her strategy. Instead of searching aimlessly, she established a feeding station along Rex's regular route. Each morning, she left fresh food and water in the same place, retreating afterward to watch from a distance. For 3 days, the food remained untouched. On the fourth, the smaller dogs approached cautiously, while Rex stood 50 yards away, alert and protective. It became a ritual. Emma would leave the offerings, fall back to her vantage point, and watch Rex permit his pack to eat, always standing guard. She never approached. Trust would take time. Each day, she moved a little closer. On the 10th day, there was an unexpected knock just after sunset. Officer Wilson stood at her door, hat in hand, his expression uncertain. "Turner," he said formally, "we've had complaints. Someone's been leaving food for strays near the old mill. Normally, I'd issue a citation," he hesitated, "but I wanted to talk to you first." Emma let him in, offered coffee. He accepted, visibly relieved. "I've seen the German shepherd your after," he admitted, settling into a chair. "That's no stray. The way he leads those other dogs, posts lookouts, it's textbook military training." Hope surged. "You think it's Rex?" Wilson nodded. "I've worked with K9 units. I'd bet on it." He set his mug down, turning it slowly in his hands. "There's something else. Jason Reynolds is back in town." The words hit like a punch. "Why?" "He moved away over a year ago. Got hired at that new shop on Madison. Been back 2 weeks. Asking about you." Anger sparked through her fatigue. "He's the reason Rex is out there. I always thought that dog jumped from the truck story was bullshit," Wilson said. "But I had nothing to go on." "I do now," Emma replied, retrieving Rex's tag. She explained about the pawn shop. Wilson's face shifted from neutral to angry. "That's theft at minimum. Could argue for animal cruelty. Abandoning a service dog." He returned the tag, decision forming in his eyes. "I can't officially support what you're doing at the mill, but I won't stop you. Just be careful. He's been feral a long time." After he left, Emma sat by her window, staring into the dark. Jason's return complicated everything. If he learned how close she was to Rex, would he interfere? The next day brought more than questions. Jason's blue truck was parked near her usual spot. Fear and fury churned in her chest. She found him by the feeding station, watching the dogs from a distance. Rex stood among them, rigid, growling low. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. Jason turned, startled. "Emma, what the hell happened to you?" She knew what he saw. 20 pounds gone, a shaved head, hollow cheeks. His reaction only fueled her rage. "You don't get to be here. Leave." He raised his hands. "I heard you're sick. People are talking. Cancer." His eyes flicked toward the dogs. "Is that him?" She stepped between Jason and the station. "You took him from me, sold his tag, left him to die." "I didn't." He stopped, guilt flaring. "It wasn't supposed to go that way. I was drunk, angry. By the time I cooled down, he was gone. I did look for him. For how long?" Her voice shook. "An hour a day? I've been looking for 2 years, and now I'm out of time." The admission cost her, revealing that vulnerability to the man who had broken her, nearly killed her spirit, was unbearable. Jason looked away, shamed. "I heard about the diagnosis. I came back, wanted to make it right. By doing what? Finding my dog." She laughed bitterly. Little late for redemption. Behind them, the pack retreated. Rex herded them into the brush, his protective instincts intact. Another day lost. Another precious day wasted. "Go," Emma said wearily. "If you want to make it right, stay away from me, from Rex." Jason nodded quietly. "I'm sorry, Emma, for what it's worth." At his truck door, he added, "If I see him again, I'll call. No tricks." She watched him drive away, unconvinced. As silence returned to the woods, she collapsed beside the feeding station, exhausted. Her strength was draining faster now. Overhead, thunder. Crack. Dark clouds rolled in. The storm they'd warned about had finally arrived. It broke after midnight, lightning flashing, thunder shaking the windows. Emma stayed awake, watching raindrops streak the glass. Rex and his pack were out there, exposed, vulnerable. Flood warnings lit up her phone. The creek behind the mill, Rex's territory, was the first first area expected to overflow. By 3 a.m., she couldn't wait anymore. She pulled on her heaviest raincoat, packed towels, dog treats, a flashlight, and first aid supplies. Her truck struggled through the flooded streets, visibility near zero. Twice, her vision blurred, a symptom Dr. Winters had warned about. She stopped each time, breath held, then drove on, slower but determined. At the mill, water pooled across the lot. She parked on high ground and continued on foot, flashlight swinging. The feeding station was gone, swept away. Empty bowls tumbled along with the current of what had been a small, harmless creek just hours before. "Rex," she called, her voice nearly lost in the roar of rain and rising water. "Rex, where are you?" A sound caught her attention, not barking, but high-pitched whine coming from the direction of the mill's old loading dock. Emma redirected her path, sloshing through ankle-deep water that grew colder with each passing minute. The beam of her flashlight caught a reflection, eyes shining in the darkness. Not Rex, but the small terrier with the bad leg that Bobby had described, trapped on a concrete platform as water swirled beneath it. Emma waded toward the frightened animal, speaking softly. "Hey there, it's okay. I'm going to help you." The terrier cowered, clearly torn between fear of the rising water and distrust of the approaching human. Just as Emma reached the platform, a powerful form lunged from the shadows, a German shepherd, teeth bared in warning. Emma froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was Rex, thinner than she remembered, with new scars visible even in the poor light, including the prominent one above his right eye, but unmistakably her dog. "Rex," she whispered, slowly lowering herself to appear less threatening. "It's me, boy. It's Emma." Rex held his ground, a low growl rumbling from his chest. Behind him, two more dogs appeared, a mixed breed with a patchy coat and what looked like a young Labrador. They flanked Rex in a defensive formation that spoke of long practice. Emma remained perfectly still, allowing the flashlight beam to illuminate her face. "You know me," she said softly. "You remember me." For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, Rex's stance shifted. His ears, which had been flattened against his skull, moved forward slightly. His growl subsided. He took a single step closer, nostrils flaring as he caught her scent properly for the first time. "That's it," Emma encouraged, fighting to keep her voice steady. "It's me, Rex. I've been looking for you for so long." A crack of thunder directly overhead shattered the moment. Rex startled, backing away as the terrier let out a frightened yelp. Emma noticed with alarm that the water had risen significantly in just a few minutes she'd been there, now nearly knee-deep and flowing with increasing force. "We have to go," she told Rex urgently. "It's not safe here." She reached for the terrier, but Rex darted forward, placing himself between Emma and the smaller dog. His message was clear. The pack was his responsibility. "Okay." Emma nodded, understanding. "You lead, then." The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on her. A dying woman following a feral dog through a flash flood in the middle of the night. Yet it felt right, somehow natural, even. She had followed Rex's lead during her worst panic attacks. Now, she would trust him again. Rex turned, nudging the terrier toward higher ground. The other dogs fell into formation, with Rex taking the rear position behind Emma, herding them all toward safety. The group made slow progress through the deepening water, navigating by instinct and the intermittent flashes of lightning. They had nearly reached the old railroad tracks that ran along higher ground when Emma felt it. A familiar pressure building behind her eyes, the precursor to the seizures that had become increasingly frequent. "Not now," she thought desperately. "Please, not now." The world tilted suddenly. Emma stumbled, one knee hitting the muddy ground as her flashlight flew from her grasp. She heard barking, distant and distorted as if underwater. Through tunneling vision, she saw Rex circling back to her, his form wavering like a mirage. Then darkness closed in, and Emma felt herself falling forward into the rising water. The next sensation was of something gripping her jacket collar, tugging, pulling, dragging her through mud and water. Consciousness returned in fragments, the sound of urgent barking, the feel of rain on her face, the taste of dirt and blood where she'd bitten her tongue during the seizure. When she managed to open her eyes, she found herself on the railroad embankment, partially sheltered by an overhanging bush. Rex stood over her, soaking wet and trembling, his teeth still clutched in the fabric of her jacket. "You saved me," Emma whispered, reaching a shaking hand toward him. Rex released her jacket, but didn't retreat. His amber eyes studied her with what Emma could only describe as concern, the same expression he'd worn years ago when monitoring her for signs of distress. Slowly, giving him every opportunity to back away, she touched his muzzle. The contact broke something open inside them both. Rex pressed his head into her palm with a whine that seemed to contain 2 years of loneliness and struggle. Emma sobbed, wrapping her arms around his wet fur, burying her face against his neck. "I found you," she repeated like a prayer. "I finally found you." The reunion was interrupted by frantic barking from the other dogs still huddled nearby. Rex pulled away, his attention returning to his pack as the water continued to rise around the embankment, threatening their tenuous safety. Emma struggled to her feet, fighting a wave of nausea and dizziness. "We need to get to my truck," she told Rex. though she wasn't sure if the vehicle remained accessible given how quickly the flood was spreading. The sound of an approaching engine cut through the storm's chaos, headlights swinging wildly as a vehicle navigated the treacherous access road. Emma squinted against the sudden brightness, raising a hand to shield her eyes. The vehicle stopped, and a familiar figure merged. "Emma," Officer Wilson called, wading toward them with a powerful flashlight. "Are you out of your mind being out here?" His uniform was soaked through, his expression a mixture of anger and relief. "The dogs," Emma explained weakly, gesturing to Rex and the others. "They were trapped." Wilson shook his head in disbelief. "The whole area is being evacuated. The drainage system failed upstream. This valley is going to be underwater within the hour." He glanced at the dogs, his gaze lingering on Rex. "That him, your dog?" Emma nodded, leaning heavily against a nearby tree as another wave of dizziness washed over her. "I can't leave them." "You don't have a choice," Wilson replied firmly, taking her arm to support her. "You need medical attention. You're hypothermic, and from the looks of it, you've had another episode." "Then we take them all," Emma insisted, her voice finding strength despite her weakened state. "My truck's up on the ridge, if we can get them there." "Your truck's probably floating halfway to the main road by now," Wilson interrupted. "The water's risen that fast. But my cruiser's on high ground, built for rough terrain. If your dog will cooperate, maybe we can—" Before he could finish, Emma's legs buckled. Wilson caught her before she hit the ground, cursing under his breath as he assessed her condition. Her skin was clammy, her breathing shallow. "Dog or no dog, you're going to hospital," he decided, lifting her into his arms despite her weak protests. To everyone's surprise, Rex followed closely as Wilson carried Emma to his police cruiser, the other dogs trailing behind like a strange procession. When Wilson opened the back door, Rex jumped in without hesitation, positioning himself on the floor near Emma's feet as Wilson carefully laid her across the seat. "Well, I'll be damned," the officer muttered. "What about the others?" Sarah, struggling to remain conscious, watched as Max let out a soft bark. The other dogs hesitated, clearly unaccustomed to vehicles, but Max's calm demeanor seemed to reassure them. One by one, they clambered awkwardly into the cruiser, first a terrier, which Max nudged forward, then the others. "Never seen anything like it," Wilson said, securing the door. "Like he understands exactly what's happening." "He does," Sarah whispered, her hand finding Max's damper in the dark interior of the cruiser. "He always has." Later, Sarah nodded faintly, accepting the news with stillness born from having already stared down death. "Where's Max?" she asked weakly. Emily sat beside her, voice soft. Officer Wilson took all the dogs to Oak Ridge Veterinary Hospital. Max didn't want to leave. They had to sedate him to treat his injuries. Sarah tried to sit up, pain lancing through her skull, making her gasp. "Nothing life-threatening," Emily reassured her. "Cuts, malnutrition, an old fracture that never healed properly. The vet says he's in surprisingly good shape, considering how long he's been on his own." She hesitated before adding, "One of the other dogs, a terrier, had a microchip. Her name's Daisy. She was reported missing over a year ago." Despite everything, Sarah managed a faint smile. "Max found himself a family out there." "Seems so." Emily squeezed her hand. "Wilson's trying to arrange a visit later today, if you're stable enough." Sarah's eyes fluttered closed, exhaustion pulling her under, but peace, rare and deep, settled over her chest. Max was safe. He was getting care. She had found him. Against all odds, despite the ticking clock of her illness, she had kept her promise. Whatever time she had left would be enough. Max was back. Sleep returned uneasily. In her dreams, she chased shadows through endless rainstorms, always searching, never finding. 3 days passed. Pneumonia set in, severe and relentless. Her lungs fought for every breath. Fever blurred the edges of time. In her dreams, Max was always just beyond reach, turning corners, vanishing into fog. On the 4th morning, Sarah woke to find Officer Wilson sitting quietly in a chair by her bedside, dressed in civilian clothes. The lines beneath his eyes spoke of long hours and deep worry. "Welcome back," he said softly, sitting upright. "The doc wasn't sure you'd pull through." Her throat burned, her voice cracked like dry paper. "Max!" Wilson's expression softened. "He's okay, still at the clinic. They're treating a small infection." But he hesitated. "Sarah, he hasn't eaten or slept properly since they separated him from you." He paces, whines, won't touch his food. A tired smile flickered across her lips. "Sounds familiar. When I first got him, he wouldn't rest until I did." She winced. The few words took everything she had. Wilson poured her a cup of water. "Save your strength. There's something else. I started an investigation into Max's disappearance." The pawn shop owner confirmed Jason Reynolds brought in Max's collar. "We have witnesses. Jason didn't just take Max. He drove 50 miles and abandoned him in in rural Crossland County. Deliberately, Sarah closed her eyes. She'd suspected it, but the confirmation chilled her to the bone. Did you arrest him? Yesterday. Theft, animal cruelty, filing a false report. He confessed to everything, didn't even fight it. Sarah turned her head away. Justice, yes, but too late to mean anything now. A knock at the door. Dr. Winters entered, accompanied by Dr. Abigail Collins, the vet who had treated Max before he vanished. Vitals are improving, Emily said, scanning the monitors. Fever's down. Oxygen stable. Think you're up for a special visitor. Sarah's heart surged. He's here. Just outside, Collins said. Light sedation. Just enough to calm him. He's been determined. Please, Sarah whispered. I need to see him. The doctors exchanged a look. Emily finally nodded. 10 minutes. No more. Max entered moments later, led by a nurse. The instant he saw Sarah, his body stilled, ears forward, trembling with emotion. Max, she called weakly, hand shaking as she reached for him. The nurse unclipped the leash. Max crossed the room in 3 bounds, but stopped short, waiting for permission. Sarah patted the bed. Gently, Max climbed up, careful of tubes and wires. He curled against her side, resting his head on her chest. He sighed, a deep, weary release. Sarah's fingers buried in his fur, tracing the scars and gray hairs. You got old, she whispered into his ear. Me too. They stayed like that, still breathing together. The monitors showed her heart rate slowing, oxygen rising. Max was doing what he was trained to do, what he'd always done. Eventually, Sarah looked to Dr. Collins. The others, oh okay, Collins said. Daisy went home to her family. The retriever mix had a chip too, but his owners couldn't keep him. He and the young lab are at the shelter. Sarah's gaze fell to Max. Her voice trembled. And him? What happens to Max when I'm gone? A heavy silence. Then Wilson spoke. I've been thinking about that. My son's been begging for a dog. Max is trained. Disciplined. If you're willing, I'd take him. Make sure he's cared for. Sarah studied his face. No trace of pity, only sincerity. She looked down at Max. Could he survive another loss? Would he spend the rest of his life waiting at a door she'd never open again? Thank you, she said finally. But Max isn't just a pet. He's a service dog. He needs purpose. Her hand moved gently through Max's fur. There's a VA program. They retrain dogs who lose their handlers and match them with veterans. It's a long process, but it gives them a mission. Max deserves that. Dr. Winters frowned gently. Sarah, your condition is progressing. I know, she said, voice quiet but steady. But this matters. Max needs to keep saving people. It's who he is. Dr. Winters nodded slowly. If his temperament and trainability continue, we could see him certified within a year. Sarah's hand trembled in her lap, a mixture of exhaustion and overwhelming relief washing over her. Together? She asked again, barely above a whisper. Would they stay together? Lawrence looked up, his expression softening. That's the plan. It's rare, but not unheard of, especially when a bond like theirs enhances the training's effectiveness. Max could help mentor Charlie, ease his adjustment, and the veteran, he's recently lost his own service dog. This might be exactly what all 3 of them need. A laugh caught in Sarah's throat, but turned into a cough that racked her body. Dr. Collins was at her side in an instant, adjusting her oxygen and murmuring reassurances. But Sarah's eyes never left Max. The German shepherd sat alert beside her wheelchair, ears perked, gaze fixed on her with unwavering loyalty. You're gonna be okay, she whispered through the mask. You're gonna have a job again, a family. You won't be alone. Max whined softly, nuzzling her hand as if trying to reassure her in return. That night, as the hospital quieted and the final pink traces of sunset faded from the window, Sarah lay in bed with Max curled on the floor beside her, one paw just touching the mattress. Her breathing was shallow, skin pale and damp with fever, but peace settled over her expression. Dr. Collins checked on her one last time around midnight. She adjusted Sarah's blankets, dimmed the lights, and knelt beside Max, resting a gentle hand on his back. She loves you, she whispered, and she's made sure you'll be loved again. Max gave a soft, almost human sigh and closed his eyes. By morning, Sarah was gone. Her letter, carefully sealed and addressed, lay on her bedside table alongside a small photo of her and Max from their service dog graduation years before. Her wishes were clear, her preparations complete. 2 weeks later, Max and Charlie were flown to the VA training center in Colorado. The Marine veteran they were paired with was a quiet man named Evan Torres, recently discharged after multiple deployments. He suffered from severe PTSD and had retreated from nearly all human contact. But Max, with his silent understanding and unwavering presence, reached him within days. Charlie, playful but perceptive, began following his father's lead, learning from both Max and Evan. A month after Sarah's passing, a photo arrived at Dr. Collins' office. It showed Evan sitting on the back porch of a small farmhouse, Max resting against his leg, and Charlie sprawled belly up in the grass. Evan was smiling, truly smiling, for the first time in years. Attached was a note, handwritten in blocky but careful script. Thank you for trusting them with me. I don't know how to repay it, but I'll try every day. Sarah's legacy lived on in the work they did, in the lives they healed, especially each other's. He paused, studying Sarah's face carefully before adding, I've arranged for them to be placed together. The veteran I mentioned, James Anderson, lost his leg in Afghanistan. He lives alone on a small farm outside town. Plenty of space for 2 dogs. Relief washed over Sarah so intensely she was momentarily speechless. When her voice finally emerged, it was barely more than a whisper. Can I meet him? This James Anderson? Lawrence hesitated, glancing toward Dr. Winters, who hovered nearby, checking Sarah's oxygen levels. That might be arranged, he said. Tomorrow, Sarah insisted, forcing strength into her voice. Please, I need to see the person who's going to care for Max. Lawrence exchanged another look with Dr. Winters, who gave a reluctant nod. I'll bring him tomorrow morning, he agreed, but only for a brief visit. That night, alone in her hospital room, Sarah gathered what remained of her strength to update the letters she'd been writing. She added everything she could remember about Charlie, about Max's protective behavior, and the extraordinary bond the two shared. Her handwriting grew increasingly unsteady as the medication took its toll, but she persisted, determined to give James Anderson every detail that might help him understand a dog who had saved her life in more ways than one. Just before dawn, Sarah awoke from troubled dreams, sensing a presence in her room. Opening her eyes, she found Dr. Winters checking her vitals, her face tight with concern. Emily, Sarah whispered, I need to tell you something. Dr. Winters leaned closer. I'm listening. The headaches, they've stopped. Since yesterday? Completely gone, Sarah said, struggling to sit up. I know what that means. The tumor is growing faster. Different areas now. She gripped Emily's hand, surprising both of them with her strength. I need to stay lucid for James Anderson's visit. Reduce whatever meds you have to. Just keep me clear-headed. Emily's eyes filled with tears. For hours. That's all I can safely give you. It's enough, Sarah said. It has to be. As sunlight filtered through the blinds, Sarah Mitchell contemplated the strange turns her life had taken. She had survived war only to fight a quieter, deadlier battle on home soil. She had lost, and then found again the being who mattered most. And now, with time running out, she was preparing to entrust her beloved companion to a stranger, another wounded warrior, who might find healing to the same remarkable dog who had saved her. The irony wasn't lost on her. In her final days, she had found more purpose and peace than in all the long months of searching. Max had always been more than a service dog. He had been her teacher, showing her how to survive grief, adapt, and find family in unexpected places. His final lesson, it seemed, was how to let go with grace. James Anderson arrived precisely at 9 a.m., his entrance marked by the quiet rhythm of prosthetic and boot on linoleum. Sarah, propped up in bed and clear-headed thanks to Dr. Winters' careful adjustments, watched as the door opened to reveal a man who seemed to fill the room, not with size, but with quiet presence. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 35, with close-cropped dark hair and watchful eyes. A neatly trimmed beard framed his face. His posture was straight-backed, military. The prosthetic leg replacing his lower left limb was visible beneath his khaki shorts. Not hidden, but not displayed either. Ma'am, he said, his voice a soft baritone. James Anderson. Everyone calls me Jim. Sarah Mitchell, she replied, gesturing to the chair beside her bed. Thank you for coming. Jim sat down, placing his cap on one knee. Max, asleep at the foot of the bed, lifted his head and regarded the newcomer. His tail gave a single, tentative wag. That's a good sign, Jim said, a faint smile touching his lips. Dogs usually take longer to warm up to me. The prosthetic throws them off. Max rose, stretched, and walked to Jim, sniffing the prosthetic with calm curiosity. Then he looked up into Jim's face. He understands, Sarah said softly. He was trained to assist veterans. The leg doesn't confuse him. It tells him you might need his help. Jim nodded, letting Max finish his inspection. Then he slowly extended his hand. Palm up, Max sniffed it, then pressed his muzzle into Jim's palm, the canine equivalent of a handshake. Mr. Lawrence told me what you've been through, Jim said, scratching gently behind Max's ears. Both of you, quite a story. Please call me Sarah. She studied his face. I need to know more about you. If I'm going to entrust Max to someone, I need to understand who that someone is. Jim didn't flinch at her directness. That's fair. I served in the Marines for 12 years. 3 tours in Afghanistan. Lost a leg to an IED on my last deployment. His tone was calm, free of self-pity. Been stateside for years now. Bought a small farm just outside town. 10 acres, wooded with a stream. You live alone? Sarah asked. Jim nodded. Married once. Before my last tour. It didn't survive the man who came back. He glanced away. PTSD, depression, the prosthetic. It was a lot for both of us. We parted as friends, but yeah, still a loss. Sarah nodded. She understood that kind of loss all too well. Now I raise vegetables, keep a few chickens, do carpentry work when I'm having good days. He smiled faintly. Not the life I planned, but it has its moments. Do you have experience with dogs? Grew up with them. Had a Belgian Malinois during my second tour. Bomb detection specialist. His expression softened. Best partner I ever had. She retired after I was injured. Went to live with another handler. The parallel to her own story hung silently between between them. Max, sensing the emotional current, returned to Sarah's side, pressing his warm body against her leg. "May I ask something personal?" Jim said. Sarah nodded, her strength waning. "Why are you willing to let him go? Most people in your position would want their companion nearby until the end." Sarah appreciated his honesty. "Because I love him too much to be selfish," she said. "Max isn't just a pet. He has skills, capabilities that can change someone's life. He changed mine." She stroked Max's head. "And after everything he's been through, the abandonment, the years alone, he deserves a future with purpose." Jim nodded quietly, considering. "And his son," Sarah continued, "Charlie, he needs a chance to become what Max already is." She looked at Jim, her gaze steady and clear. "They need each other, and I think they need you too." Something shifted between them then. A silent understanding shared by two people who had lost much and kept going anyway. Sarah felt tears welling, part exhaustion, part fear, part fierce love for the dog she was about to say goodbye to. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Not of dying." The inscription was understated, just as Sarah would have wanted. No long list of honors or decorations, just the essence of who she had been. A soldier, a friend, a protector, devoted handler, loyal to the last. Max sat beside the grave, unmoving. Charlie pressed close to his side. Jim stood behind them, one hand resting lightly on Max's head, the other clutching the whistle that never left his neck. The breeze stirred the hem of his coat and fluttered the tiny flags planted near Sarah's name. Dr. Winters stepped forward and placed a small bundle of white roses at the base of the headstone. "She saved more than she ever knew," she said softly. Officer Wilson gave a short, precise salute and left us better than she found us. No one spoke for a long time after that. The silence wasn't empty, it was full of the weight of grief and the gravity of legacy, full of everything Sarah had fought for, suffered through, and ultimately passed on. Finally, Jim crouched beside Max and whispered, "Ready?" Max stood, but not before nudging his nose once against a stone. A final goodbye. Then he turned, falling into step beside Jim. Charlie flanked his other side. No words, no commands, just quiet understanding. They walked away from the grave together, not as a woman and her dog once had, but as the next chapter of that story. A bond reformed, passed down, living on, from her place beyond pain, beyond worry. Sarah Mitchell watched them go and was at peace. She had kept her promise. Max had found home again, and the mission continued. Beside the freshly turned earth, Max and Charlie sat in dignified silence, flanking Jim like sentinels carved from memory and devotion. Jim stood between them, his hands resting gently on their heads, a steady bridge between past and future. When the military honor guard raised their rifles and fired, the sharp report rang out across the cemetery. Neither dog flinched. Max had heard such salutes before and understood their meaning. Charlie didn't need to understand. He trusted his father's unshaken calm. As a final note of taps faded into the breeze and the mourners quietly dispersed, Jim remained behind. He said nothing, did nothing. Only watched as Max slowly rose and approached Sarah's headstone. The aging German shepherd sniffed the granite, the flowers, and finally the soil itself, as if memorizing the saying goodbye. Then, with quiet grace, he placed one paw on the earth and held it there. A moment, a farewell, a promise. Then he turned, ready to follow Jim home. 6 months later, the chill of winter had passed. Spring carried new light, new breath into the town of Oakage. Jim walked the tile halls of the VA hospital with Max and Charlie at his side, both wearing sleek service vests bearing the words, "Therapy Dog in Training." In the rehabilitation wing, they passed rows of veterans, some silent, some restless, all wounded in ways that ran deeper than flesh. A young woman near the window struggled with her prosthetic leg, her frustration evident, but her eyes lifted when she saw the dogs. "This is Max," Jim said gently, nodding to the older shepherd. "He's a specialist in anxiety reduction and mobility support." Max stepped forward slowly, with a kind of assurance no human could fake. He lowered his head beneath the woman's trembling hand. She let it rest there, just for a moment, and everything in her posture softened. It was the same gift he'd given Sarah. Not just comfort, not just obedience. Presence. Jim felt it like a heartbeat behind his ribs. The continuity of care, the transfer of trust, the living memory of love that endured loss and chose to keep going. Charlie watched carefully, picking up not just a technique, but the intention behind every movement. He would carry it forward someday, just as Max had carried it from Sarah. Jim sometimes wondered if Sarah was watching, not in a haunted sense, but in the quiet way you hope someone who loved you is still somehow part of what you become. And he believed she was, watching Max work, seeing Charlie learn, witnessing how the ripples of one woman's love touched lives far beyond her own. In time, Max's gait would slow, his muzzle would gray, but his purpose never would, not until the very end, because guardians like him, like Sarah, don't vanish. They become legacy. And in the twilight of our lives, when the light grows softer and the days grow shorter, we come to understand truths that only time and loss can teach us. this. Love doesn't fade. It only transforms. Loyalty doesn't die. It endures beyond presence, beyond words, beyond even a final breath. And goodbyes, when spoken with courage and grace, do not mark an end. They mark a beginning. A new chapter for those we leave behind, and for those who carry our legacy forward. Sarah didn't let Max go because she was defeated or broken. She let him go because she was strong. Strong enough to recognize that love means knowing when to hold on and when to set free. Strong enough to trust that Max's purpose was bigger than her own pain. Strong enough to believe that in letting go, she was giving Max the gift of a new life, a new mission, a new family. Max, faithful until the end, didn't walk away from Sarah's side. He carried her with him in every step, every glance, every quiet moment of comfort he gave to the men and women who needed him most. He was not just a dog, not just a companion, but a guardian of memory, a bearer of hope, a living testament to the unbreakable bond forged by love and sacrifice. In the echo of Sarah's story, there is a lesson for all of us: to love deeply, to serve faithfully, to find meaning in the moments we share and the lives we touch. And when the time comes to say goodbye, to do so with a heart full of gratitude, knowing that what we leave behind will continue to grow, rooted in the love we gave and the lives we changed.